What is up, design family, and welcome back to another episode of Fittalk, the podcast series where we basically get to sit down with entrepreneurs in the fashion space and learn the life lessons that they've learned along the way. On today's episode, we have the absolute pleasure to welcome Scott Flear, founder of Rugby Warfare, co-founder of TRTLE. Scott, we've known each other for a while, and I'm so excited to finally have you on the podcast. It's going to be an amazing one. I can just feel the energy right now. So I want you to take it away immediately. Scott, who are you? And give us a quick synopsis of everything you've done up until this point.
I wouldn't be me unless I mentioned I'm the Welshest man on the planet. But yeah, from a little town in Wales in the UK, and a bit of a background in fitness and sport and all that. And to skip a lot of the timeline, I started a fitness company, a fitness website. I wouldn't say it's a company. You think it is when you're about 16, like many people actually. Looking back, simply share all I started, building a website at 16, health and fitness, got obsessed with it, maybe a similar storyline to others. And then went into university with a fitness website. And that's like SEO, all this stuff. And then I sold it whilst in uni because I had no cash. And then I transformed the idea into more of a rugby version because there was no rugby information out there. And then that evolved into a rugby clothing brand because there was no good rugby clothing out there. And after uni, that evolved and we met along the way. And of course, so in a sense, I've just been a very curious person, Shadi, as you know, curious over the years, building stuff and just taking risks along the way. And it's just evolved from there really till today now after Rugby Warfare. Well, it all links up, of course, like you can't just look back at one or the other. I then founded TRTLE Method with Louise and Ryan, who are influencers. And that's why we went into the fitness space. Kind of full circle, like, back in the day, website, let's put this into the mass market and then let's create a product out of it. And that's what I went around. And then we launched a clothing range with TRTLE Method as well. So happy days, man.
Yeah, that's a quick synopsis of everything you've done. But of course, there's so much more than meets the eye. I want to talk about Rugby Warfare first. And this is the brand from which I know you. When it comes to creating a brand, what do you think are the core elements that anyone should start with? Of course, a fashion brand is different than another entrepreneurial endeavor, but fashion brand specifically, how did you go about putting your mind into gear to starting Rugby Warfare and kind of creating the basis for what it's become today?
Community, man. Like I was a rugby boy and I knew what they wanted. There was no information out there to help rugby guys, just amateur level, improve their game. So I was like, how can we get this content out there by experts? Let's write it, let's get it out there. And then we're like, actually, these rugby boys don't want to wear, no offense to Gymshark, they don't want to wear Gymshark. They don't want to wear tight stuff. They want to wear stuff that is more athletic, less tight, but more baggy around the torso. I was like, there is no brand catering for me as this rugby person, And I knew other people were keen for that type of fit as well. So it literally went from me bringing in some clothing, being like, boys, what do you think of this? And they were like, yeah, we love it. And building around the community that was already there, but in a way that hadn't been done before. And I think that era of, 2013, 2017, there was a lot of brands that came out of nowhere, Gymshark for the gym heads. They became very specific, right? Women's best for women and all this stuff. They all became part of that movement. So yeah, really just, I think that's a core one, is building around the people that I knew. And I think if I was to translate to another business, is be like, if you can find a circle of people who are similar, who have
almost like a niche focus. By kind of being hyper specific on who your customer is, you really get to build something that's specifically catered towards that customer avatar.
Exactly. And when you use a copy in your marketing and stuff like that, you actually speak to these specific people. It's not like we're the best gym brand in the world. Like, we're Rugby Warfare, mate. Like, we're built for rugby physiques. And actually, I always used to say in the copy, our t-shirts are fitted around the arms and shoulders, but they're looser around the belly button. Don't worry, you don't have to be shredded. Yeah. You can be beefy. And
of course,
just speaking on their language, basically, as well. I think a lot of people go wrong that way, don't they? They speak like they don't speak in the language of their market.
It shows a fundamental understanding of who you're speaking to, which is always the way to go, especially when it comes to building a business that's in the fashion sector, a sector that's so competitive. And this sort of takes me on to my next question, which is, Scott, the fashion business is insanely competitive. And you mentioned that there's brands that pretty much pop up left and right. What's one thing about your business, about Rugby Warfare, that your competitors can't compete with?
I think the first thing you couldn't compete with in the rugby. So the first thing I'd say is I built a presence online, and I had a lot of organic traffic to start with. I had a lot of blog content of people before we sold to them clothing. They trusted what the brand was. They love people all this message. Love what you're doing with the brand, right? What the brand actually is at its completion right now. I love what you're doing, Scott. I love where you're going with the brand, or this authenticity, this like putting content out there trying to help. And I think you can't compete with a personality. I think you can't compete. So like, for example, Christian Guzman is a perfect example. You can't compete with Christian Guzman. He has got his brand himself, and you can't compete with that. You can be your own person. And I think what I did early on was trying to do a lot of this behind the brand stuff and all these videos a bit back in the day, just show when there was a young Welsh rugby player on amateur level, wanted to build this brand, and a lot of people resonated with it. And like, how can a faceless organization like Canterbury, obviously they make more money, but they can't just hijack that movement. It's not, you can't just hijack these smaller brands in these small brands. So I think that's the thing mainly.
This sort of relates to, and I know you're a huge reader. You love to read, you love to nourish your mind, and that's such an important aspect of building a business. There's a book that you mentioned about, what is it, your 50 loyal customers or your 100 loyal customers. It's about building your core base. Can you tell me a little bit more about that concept? Because it's something that you've always been so hyper specific in, even in TRTLE, the way that you treat the core base of people. It's, you cast a very narrow net, but you go deep into your interactions there. So tell me a little bit about the importance of going a bit more deep into your customer base as opposed to casting a wider net.
100%. I think there's a book called The 1000 True Fans as well, which is good if you can focus on the felt. Even
that's the one.
Yeah, I think the main thing for me in that regard is like, I'm a human being and I'm selling to another human being. And because in between I'm building a brand that resonates with, doesn't mean we need to speak in this weird language. I like become friends in a sense with my loyal customers. Like one loyal customer from Netherlands, right? He said buy loads of stuff, and I said always, add bonuses. And he was in London at one point, and I said, mate, let me come and meet you. And he was with his girlfriend, and we went for food, and I bought him a burger and all that, and started chatting with him. And like that level, and I think Gary Vee kind of says about this stuff. He has that story where he drove like
the wine.
Yeah, the wine 6 hours. So I've got a lot of people in my head that I know who are top customers. They know me as a person, and you just learn from them. They tell you the truth about stuff. They're like, mate, do that again. I don't know, that wasn't good. And it's hard to get real feedback like that as well. And I think if you can focus on that instead of, like with our TRTLE membership, we say 1 day at a time, and we stop. When people start a fitness journey, they think I've got to lose 100 pounds. And it's huge in a head like that. 100 pounds too long. Chad, you've lost about 250 pounds. But, if you break down building a brand to single or double digit numbers first, it's less overwhelming. Okay, can I find 10 people? That's it. Start there, 10 people.
That is so smart. I would say that's one of the best pieces of advice that has ever been given on these interview series. Is so many people go in thinking that they're going to create $1 million business, and if they don't, they fall short, that they're a failure, and they lose that motivation without understanding that by focusing on that initial step, building that loyal customer base, those first 10 people, those first 20 people, really being attentive to what your market wants, that is the recipe for success. Like that's what's going to give you that growth. And
yeah, 100%. Also, the key thing when you speak to your customers and you get either Zoom recordings, or you can do whatever you want with the top 10, top 100 customers. If you create feedback forms, you ask them to describe your brand to their friend. How would you describe Rugby Warfare to your friend? How would you describe this to your friend? How would you describe Rugby Warfare? Those words they use are the words you then use in your marketing copy. That's how they actually think about your brand and actually can relate it to someone else. So you get 2 wins. You get your first paying customers and you get your marketing.
And you are a phenomenal marketer. We'll get into that point in a bit because you have so much knowledge you can share regarding marketing techniques, how you approach your marketing. But I'm curious, Scott, building Rugby Warfare up until this point, what's been one of the single biggest struggles or challenges that you've had to face? And how is this struggle something that you're actively trying to overcome?
Biggest struggle for me is, and it's all tied in, is that I do all the tasks, the other in Rugby to start with. I do the marketing, I do the ideas, I was doing the logistics back in the day. I was doing the email marketing, the social media, all this stuff, right? And then when it comes to scaling a brand, as you know, inventory and stock, people tell you all the time, you know, stock, you got to plan your stock, you got to do all this. And you think, yeah, I'll just do it as I go. And actually you end up with cash flow issues, and you can't see far enough to really understand the art really of ordering stock in at the right time, seasonal colors, all this stuff, all this planning that you think, I'll just bring them as they come, because that's doing all the time. That was the main struggle. Then when we worked with you more deeply, remember we had content management going on at one point that was really helpful, and we had like these, you know, design packs going out and getting feedback, and then we were going off what people wanted, and it helped tremendously having that go up. So I think that moment when we growing, but then it was kind of ad hoc to more lined based stuff, was huge difference. That's where businesses crumble out, I think.
100%. Almost every single entrepreneur we've had on these episodes has mentioned in some form or another, it's ordering product. It's planning your launches in advance. And because there's so much cash that's tied up in the stock that you're purchasing 6 months in advance, 12 months in advance. And it makes it extremely difficult.
Yeah. And I've looked at all sorts of fundings. You know, there's people out there that do, there's companies out there now that will buy your stock for you and you pay them back after 90 days of delivery, but then they add obviously their percentage to it. And, you know, there's businesses now being built around this exact issue.
Yeah.
And for people scaling and growing, they want to rush growth, right? And that's the problem as well. I think you can get caught in growth. My biggest near death experience as a business was at peak growth, where we had so much growth and money coming in at one point. We instead of going with our tried and trusted method of what do our customers want, let's just order loads of different stuff in because we think they like us and see if it sells. And then it came in, and people said, yeah, we might buy it. And then when it came in, they said, yeah, we'll buy these different ranges. And then they didn't buy them when the time came. And that's getting not cocky, but like, oh wow, so we just keep doing this and it's easy.
There needs to be a strategic feedback loop that you have when you put out product. You need to analyze how it's performing and figure out, is this something I want to continue with or not? A lot of brands, they jump from strength to strength, but as they scale, as there's this pressure to add more product, they almost lose sight of the core fundamentals. And you're someone that is so good at implementing core fundamentals. And I've seen you do that tremendously with TRTLE. Tell me a little bit about TRTLE and in terms of what the next 12 months for the company looks like, in terms of what products you offer and why you've selected those products on offer. And they don't only have to be products that are fashion-based. I know that you guys offer a wide variety of different items. So tell me what that selection is and how they slot into creating this entire collection.
Yeah. So from Rugby Warfare, full-time, flat out, the idea of TRTLE came. TRTLE had bigger potential, right? And many entrepreneurs might come across this fork in the road where you go, we don't have as much cash like in the bank as we can just hire like a team of people. So we still have to keep it lean. So then we went into TRTLE and the big moves into TRTLE. And what I realized quite fast was actually all the work I had done with Rugby Warfare in terms of like working with you, Shadi, we went to the Munich ISPO, understanding supply chains, understanding where like buying the fabric separately from actually cut and sew factory, all this stuff, like all that education. We went on a big journey there through those years. When it came to TRTLE, within a month, I had already decided we were launching physical product. It's a health and fitness membership. We had brought up resistance bands at rapid speed, selling them, you know, profit margins massive. They were flying out. Then we were bringing out like we spoke early on about this like branding TRTLE. If you think of this Rugby Warfare took this time, TRTLE was like accelerated. Whilst it was growing with the membership, we would like physical product on top of the community is always the way to go. So yeah, we decided then we had resistance bands, we had like yoga mats, exercise mats, bags, leggings, sports bras. But really what we did again was asking the community, what do you want? And they were like, we want a really really supportive sports bra that's nice. It's like, okay, we'll create a high impact sports bra, right? Nice, clear logo. And they were like, we love it. It's the best sports bra we've bought about for running. Happy days. We want oversized t-shirts just to be able to go on Zooms on and chill out. Okay, we'll bring you the really, really nice fabric oversized t-shirts. We want leggings that don't break the bank, but really good fabric. No problem. We can do it. We can get it done. Then it was like joggers, hoodies, and people are so into the brand TRTLE. I've never seen this. Like, people say it's a cult, right? And maybe other people can talk, like maybe because some people say it's a cult, people love them so much, but because we've created a community, we've helped them so much in their lives through like philosophy, weight loss, and all this stuff. They actually believe in us so much that we're always asking for feedback. If you ask TRTLEs maybe to define what Scott does in TRTLE, I'm like always asking, what can we do to help you, all the time. And listening. It used to be tough for me to take feedback. I used to read a feedback form years ago, and maybe you see the same. You see a negative comment, and your blood boils immediately. You're like, oh, how can someone do it? Now I can literally read a 1-star review with no emotion.
It's well, it shows the level of work that you've done on yourself to get to a point where you value that feedback. Because number one, if you're going to take it personally, you're not going to learn from it. Every single comment has something to teach you about yourself, about your business. And at the end of the day, the market is always going to speak. There's no point in bringing your ego into it. This really comes into kind of my next question, which, Scott, building a business is so difficult. It's one of the most difficult things that a single person can actually do in their lives, but it's also one of the most fulfilling things that you can do in your life if you set yourself on the right path. And I know from personal experience, and I'm sure you can attest to this, that there's a level of personal growth that you have to go through that runs in tandem with the business's growth. How have you approached your own personal growth, and how do you think that that's impacted the businesses that you're running?
Oh, man, massive. Like I think back to big key moments, and I look back now. In 2018, when I went to California, I thought I can work from my laptop. I can work. I got workers back in Wales to do this stock. I can go to California and I can pursue this lifelong ambition of me just being surrounded by Silicon Valley heads. Steve Jobs, I loved Apple. Like, I really curious about that. I remember like setting up a rugby sevens tournament between Google, Apple, Facebook, and Tesla employees, right? Near San Jose, giving them all kit out, the Rugby Warfare Silicon Valley Sevens tournament. I couldn't believe it. It's like, this is for me as a kid to come to Silicon Valley to actually be rubbing shoulders with these engineers of these companies, and we're talking on the same level. They're congratulating me for building this, and I'm talking to them and all that, right? And that's like, what a journey it's been to get to this point. And I remember thinking, it's all about just like back at home, people would have been like, oh, Scott, people always in the hometowns, always negative and stuff like that. I was like, you just got to leave that nest. When you leave that nest, all the people, I think someone's told me yesterday in Florence, this business guy, an Australian business guy told me yesterday in Florence, he said that 95% of people don't leave 60 miles away from their hometown. So 5% of people are movers, right? And those 5% of people that are movers, when they meet each other, it just clicks, You moved over to America, I moved around, and we met and we clicks, right? So that was a realization for me. My journey was the step away from the nest into the risk of the unknown, reading a lot, rubbing shoulders with those types of people, reaffirming that actually I do deserve to be in this arena with these people, taking the risks. I don't know how many people, founders that you speak to, but my background is no financial. I know people say they had no money, but then they have 100 grand in the bank, or they have parents to fall back on. Literally nothing. I came out of uni in massive amounts of debt that I had to pay off ages later whilst trying to grow a brand. I was in a high risk. If it failed, personally, would have taken that to take a job and whatever. And I was happy to take the risk because I believed in all that. But personal development was a massive reason why I kept going. Stoicism, meeting people, chatting about life. Me and you chat about business, but we also chat about a lot more stuff than that, and over the years, it keeps going, it keeps developing. And then you attract people, you attract things. Yeah, man, I don't know. If I just saw it as a business, if I just saw it as numbers, Rugby Warfare needs to make this money, and if it's not, it's a failure. Well, I wouldn't be here. The skills I've learned and what I've learned about myself is worth way more than the money, way more.
I fully agree, and I've seen that journey happen firsthand, and I'm so proud of you, Scott. I'm so proud of that journey that you made, and it's always amazing to see my friends, people like yourself that I've known for a while through the business, grow and develop and maneuver life and take on the challenges and say, is that all you got? I'm going to keep moving forward. I'm going to keep getting better. And I'm so impressed. And so many people are going to get the value that I know that they're going to get out of it. So I wish you the absolute best. Scott, I want to ask for your top 3 book recommendations for myself personally, but at the same time, I am a big advocate of reading, of nourishing your mind. So I know you're a huge reader. Can you give me your top 3 books that you would recommend to me and to anyone watching this episode?
Yeah. Okay. So top 3 books. Well, if one books that probably changed my perception on how long it takes to build a brand would be Shoe Dog. I remember listening
By
to
Phil
that.
Knight.
Yeah. Like just for a business sense, like just guys read that book just because it shows the graft it took him to build Nike where it is today. We got it much easier, but in terms of like speed online and stuff. But that's a great one. In terms of philosophy, like there's loads. There's a book called How to Be a Stoic by Penguin Classics, and that covers the 3 main Stoic texts: those Seneca, Marcus Aurelius, and Epictetus. And when you read those texts, you realize that we are the same as the Romans back then, exactly the same problems, but they managed somehow to, well, we know why. They didn't have technology blocking them. They were speaking about this stuff like a lot more than we were. And there's so many lessons that you can take from that, like, they said about the review stuff, not being an emotional mess, because if you're an emotional mess in business, it stops you doing what you need to do next. I could cry for a day about something, like, well, what do you have to do next, Scott? You've had a bad review. Do you want to go and cry for a day, or do you want to just go, I've had a bad review, let's reach out? That's the next step, simple as. There's nothing more to it. 3rd book, I think this book is essential for health, I'd say. It's called Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers by Robert Sapolsky. And he's a brilliant scientist. There's actually lectures on YouTube. All his lectures on YouTube from Stanford University are free to watch about depression and the mind. But the stress response, like how dangerous it is to have that on all day. And as a business owner, if you don't watch out, and we've
It can
all
eat
been
you
there.
alive. Yeah.
Oh, and stress response, we would consider chronic stress. So maybe you're triggering it 6, 7, 8 times a day might be considered, chronic stress. And the impacts that has are detrimental. Like your appetite goes up when you're stressed, your appetite should go down because you're trying to run away from danger. The glucose goes to the muscles and you basically feel like you need to go toilet, right? Those are classic stress response acutely, run away or fight. If you keep it on too long, you feel hungry, you've got more risk of like heart disease. There's like just a constant anxiety to your being. You can't even think properly, so it impacts your rational decision-making part of your brain. So your frontal cortex, if that doesn't, it's got a finite amount of energy to use per day on decision-making stuff, right? So once you've used up that willpower or whatever it is, you feel like you have decision fatigue. You make worse decisions. Now think about that long-term as a business owner. Terrible news for you as a business owner, because you might be making decisions. You might be replying to one email in a rage, and it might be screenshotted and ruin your brand. Or you might do something so stupid in a decision with a supplier. You talk really bad to them, and they're like, you know what, we don't want to work with you. And then you're like, oh shit, I've lost my thing. So yeah, those books like philosophy, sciencey, and then Shoe Dog, I'd say, if I were to recommend it.
Love them.
For you as well, but for you, like, I don't know, you definitely, you're a curious guy, Shadi. You go into a lot of stuff as well. I think, like, what would you say then in your business right now, or the last 12 months, has been that thing in the head, nagging you in the back of the head?
I think you hit the nail on the head. It's to have a stoic attitude towards everything. I think people underestimate the power of being able to manage yourself and manage your impulses, and to have no expectations, but at the same time strive and do the actions that are going to get you what you need. So many people have this expectation of what needs to happen, and it does 2 things. Number one, it throws themselves off when things don't happen within the timeline that they want, whether it's in their business life or their personal life. Having expectations of anyone or anything is a recipe for disaster. 2, when you put yourself at the center to be affected by something that's outside your control, you open yourself up unnecessarily. So it's just coming to the realization that I have the power to control how I perceive any single situation and how I allow it to affect me. And that's been so tremendously powerful. And I see it in you. And It's something that, in a sense, seeing you go through that journey, it just sort of flicked the switch in my head to be like, yes, this is one of the better directions. Should I explore it? And I did. And I just getting more and more into it. It's been a great ride. Scott, I do want to transition into some rapid fire questions if you'd allow me. And I think there's some cool questions in here. So number one is Rugby Warfare. Interesting name. Why or how did you come up with it?
Do you know the truth?
Yeah.
I know a lot of people that will, let me tell you, Gymshark used to sell Z's stringers, right? Z's shorts. Everybody loved Z's in 2010, right? And people, the brands wanted them at ASRV as well. All of these brands started off selling Z stuff. I remember being obsessed with Z's. He really inspired me back in the day. And I remember he got sponsored by a brand called Muscle Warfare. And when I was coming into an idea for rugby, I was like, oh, that warfare looks so cool. So I was like, Rugby Warfare. It makes sense as well. Rugby is a bit of a warfare, a bit of a fight. And that's where the idea triggered from. Someone I was looking up to at the time. Maybe, yeah, make it.
It had a personal relationship. It had a personal relationship to you. Most people, I think, they stifle themselves thinking that they have to find the perfect name, or else the business is never going to work out, without realizing that. And this is something that you're also really good at, is moving forward with your decisions with speed and with consistency, and not getting stuck in these small details, and not getting stuck in areas that are not going to serve you. So
100%,
yeah,
100%.
you just came up with Rugby Warfare, and that's the name, and you went along with it.
I mean, that's all. Everything is a mismatch of everything. Well, there's a quote in it, like nothing's new under the sun. Like everything's already been said and done. It's just different ways. One book recommendation on that point is called "Steal Like an Artist."
You mentioned it before.
Really good book about the mental block behind actually doing something similar to what you've seen, but everyone's inspired by other people, guys. So just be respectable about it. But,
of course, give it your twist and your spin.
Yeah.
Scott, what's been your favorite Rugby Warfare product that you've put out to date, and why?
Ooh. Do you know what it is? It's that Lions collection we did. Do you know why it was? Because it was such a fast idea. It was idea, implementation, sellout in rapid fire time. It was like, Shadi, mock me up the Lions to rugby, our top selling products in Lions colors, so red and navy. Let's get that on Instagram with people keen for it. Okay, people are keen for it. Right, manufacturer, can I order this in now? You've done the products before, but these colors, and can I pay you the 30% deposit now? They were like, right, okay. And can you get it done in 5 weeks? They were like, oh. I was like, okay. And then they were like, okay, let's do it. 30% deposit down. I was like, put it on pre-order, sold out straight away. So made the profit up front. They landed like, I don't know, like 5 days before we went to send them out. We did a photo shoot with some rugby players. The whole thing, start to finish, was like such a whirlwind thing. But it just showed, speed, idea and speed. Sometimes ideas come like a lightning bolt and you have to act on them immediately. And it might not be a good idea in 3 months' time. Clearly not, because the Lions tour are gone. I've been quick to act on things like that. We've been quick to act on things like that. Like, let's get this done, bam, bam, and then just flies. So that's that. I remember driving home from the photo shoot because I put it live in the rugby players' flat. And I was driving back and people were saying, can't order, orders are failing. I had to pull over on the motorway, get my laptop out. I was like, right. All right, so there's zero stock and put it in stock. And then I was like, okay, I'll drive home. And by the time I got home, it was sold out. Oh, I love that.
It's a testament to the sharp implementation of going from idea to design to concept to production, and just not second guessing yourself and staying true to your guns.
Yeah, timing. Yeah. Things happen, there's a lot of brands that go off a content calendar of things that happen in the world. Think Christmas is a general one, toys at Christmas, but think of just things that happen in your niche. Like we got the Six Nations, we got the Rugby World Cup, we got the Rugby Sevens, which I went into San Francisco for. There's a lot of things in the calendar you're missing out on, that you can just do these things that are limited.
Scott, so that being said, I'm also curious to know on the flip side, what's been one of those products for Rugby Warfare that, looking back at it, you should have thought twice about, and why? Why do you kind of have that image of that product in your head?
Oh, mate, this is an easy one because I remember someone literally tagged me in a photo of it the other day on Rugby Warfare saying it was cool, but like, oh, this old school garment. And I was like cringing. Remember, we did the Nations inspired range. So we did the Lions range and we thought, well, if we did colors for Lions rugby, Then let's do it for each individual nation and bring rugby off a spin. And we did one for the USA, remember? Mm-hmm. And I remember we brought out like a pair of joggers that had like, they were like white with like 3 stripes on them. And like, it was a nuts design. I'm thinking back, like, thinking back to like rugby boys. I don't want that nuts of a design on the joggers. I remember they didn't sell well at all.
They didn't want to walk around looking like an American flag. Yeah.
Mate. Yeah. But
I had a lot of fun designing them. That I'm gonna say that.
Yeah, the design was cool. I think the design itself was cool. It just didn't fit what we were trying to do. Like we had Scotland, which was like all dark purple. It was lovely, like all dark purple, and we had Wales in red, and we had in the greens. But in America, we like, let's go massive on it. Worse in terms of sales, I think, but definitely like wrong move. That's a classic example, though, guys, of one thing happening, working in a time-based scenario like the Lions rugby range. So the Lions is basically England, Wales, Scotland, Ireland come together, form the Lions, and they usually play like the New Zealand All Blacks, South Africa, Argentina, Australia, every 4 years. So it's a big event every 4 years, and so we did the Lions range, of course, at a hype, and it sold out. But then Nations range, we thought maybe it would. Didn't really work. I mean, maybe it will work in another way in the future, but things can't just replicate. But yeah, that one.
It's a learning experience for sure.
Yeah, definitely. 100%.
Scott, I mentioned early in the podcast that you have a unique ability to market. You think and approach every business endeavor from a marketing perspective. You've done that with Rugby Warfare. You've done that with TRTLE. How do you go about using your marketing strategies to bring awareness to both Rugby Warfare and TRTLE? And you don't have to go deep into the concepts, but I'm curious to see what types of techniques you employ for each of the brands.
Yeah. One of the main techniques we do is, and a lot of people will have come across the lead magnet thing, which is you give something of value to someone in exchange for their email address, right? But the thing with this, how normal people go about it is they go, right, we give you an ebook or a thing, and then we have an email, and then we'll email you with a sale. What I always do is I always look at what really do people in our community want. So with rugby boys, always like, what does that athlete you use, junior side, like he's got massive legs. What's he doing for his legs? So, all right, let's put together the perfect leg workout, and we put it into a PDF workout book. But when people enter the email on the webpage, right, they put their email in to get it. We don't just send them the email. We put them to a secondary page, a thank you page. And that's usually a video of me or junior side saying, look, guys, thanks for downloading our leg workout. We know you're keen to get bigger legs, but look, we thank you for trusting us first, but we got a massive offer for you right now. We got an offer for you where you can get these shorts or whatever for like 50% off as your first order. We just want to get you in our shorts, get you in our program, show you we can add value. And after that, you can be a customer, whatever. And then, that way of getting awareness using Facebook ads for that is so narrow. Rugby boys want the big legs, given the program by a pro player, and behind that, they obviously want rugby shorts or rugby joggers. It just makes sense. Give them a good offer, so you can get awareness for really, really, really cheap. Same with TRTLE. We're like, what do people need? Well, a lot of people wanted nutrition guide, flexible nutrition guide in plain English by Louise and Ryan or wherever. We're like, right, let's give them this guide for free. And as on the thank you page, look, we know you're interested in the free nutrition guide, but having information is one thing, actually implementing it is another. Let us help you implement it. Put trust in us. 12 weeks. This is the rate. So you get loads of emails, you get loads of awareness through ads, mega cheap, and you give them an offer that actually makes sense. And that offer will convert. It'll make your ad spend. It basically makes your ad spend. It covers your ad spend. That makes it better. So your ads are free.
So you're basically generating awareness for nothing, which is the dream.
Yeah. And emails, which is the main thing I was bang on about. Like your email list, you get thousands of emails, and obviously you want to segment them and stuff over time, but you get loads of emails, you get loads of awareness, you get products out the door, you get feedback from the products, which is another really important part. And you just get to chat to people in your community that are interested. That's the main thing. A lot of people going about, I'll post like 5 times a day on Instagram. I'll get like 3 likes, and my feed looks amazing. I'm like, don't care.
It's a balancing act. It's about creating and mounting a marketing strategy that's going to get you results. So that being said, what are some marketing tools, like some softwares or some technical tools that you can't live without?
Klaviyo, which is the
Why?
email software. Oh mate, it's built for e-commerce. It's just literally built for it. I mean, it tells you how much money each email makes. For one, it integrates with WooCommerce and Shopify, deep links with them, so you can do cross sells automatically, upsells, lifetime value, all this stuff. You can create flows very easily. You before Klaviyo, you'd have to go into Google Analytics to check if your email was making you money. With Klaviyo, I could see that sale email made me loads of money. That email made me loads. That email makes me loads. And I know what works because I can see I don't care about open. I do care about open rate. Don't really care so much about click rate. I care much, does that email generate sales? You know, and Klaviyo tells you that metric in your face.
So it's extremely, I know you have a lot of experience with it. It's extremely deeply embedded into your entire marketing strategy, from the lead or the item that you're using to bring people to your page. And at the same time, how you're positioning the upsell, or how you're positioning the product, or how you're positioning any other thing that you want your customers to eventually get to. It gives you a clear overview of how that campaign is generating. So this takes me on to my next question, which is, what is one of the biggest mistakes you see a lot of fashion entrepreneurs making when it comes to their own marketing strategies and how they're marketing their brands and the tools that they're using?
Yeah, first one, just to finish on the second one, just a quick one for tips for someone. You notice a lot of people will email you saying, we can deliver you an email strategy that will boost your sales. You're an e-commerce brand. Every e-commerce owner will have these emails going forward from these people. The reason they get the results is because they literally plug a Klaviyo into your store. They notice you don't use Klaviyo. They plug Klaviyo in. It literally boosts your revenue pretty much automatically. Right? And then you think it's them, but it's not them. It's the tool that's enabled the deep linking. So try Klaviyo first and see the results. Don't pay someone else to do it for you. You can learn yourself. Please do it. Plug it in. Job done. But marketing is the main thing is like thinking that, you know, followers and all this stuff is gonna get you the sales, and the marketing I see is very generic as well. Like I sort of said you earlier, but I speak in their language. In the rugby boys language, I try to speak in TRTLE's language. I ask the members how they describe us. And what happens in every single industry in the world, everyone starts copying each other. And this goes for marketing as well. The same word. You know, I stopped doing it, called unrivaled fit, unique designs. You know,
the most unique.
Wow. You know, everyone says they got unique designs. Premium fabrics. Everyone says they got premium fabrics.
But is it four-way stretch though?
Is it four-way stretch? Four-way stretch, five-way stretch.
That's your that's trademark Scott Flear.
Yeah. So there's, you know, copywriting books. There's a great book. It's an old one called Breakthrough Advertising by Eugene Schwartz in the 60s. And he talks about this concept, like the first ads that came out for fat loss back in the day were like, lose weight. And people were like, yeah, I'm gonna lose weight. Then it was like, that's saturated. So it's like, lose weight in 60 days. So we brought the time element. And then that got saturated. Lose weight in 60 days without restriction. And they keep going now forever. They've overused them. So if you use words that are being overused, people are literally, they've turned off. They see those words, they just it's called pattern interrupt. Like when you're on the feeds, you need something to disrupt your pattern of just doom scrolling. And the same words don't disrupt that pattern. Same images don't do it. That's why influencer marketing works, right? You get an influencer in a kind of natural looking photo, not the usual influencer one, and they're like, okay, that's that person, that's a pattern interrupt. Then that gets overused. So that's the main one, is stop using words everyone else uses, find your own voice, ask your customers to describe you. If you are a solopreneur like I started off, as most of you will, you don't need to lie, guys, and say you've got a team of 25 employees. You can say it's you and maybe someone else or 3 people, or you've freelanced there, you've got contractors, that's fine. Who are you? And like, bring yourself into the brand. There's a great piece of advice I heard from another next level copywriter. He's been in the game since the 90s. I think it was his name, Ken McCarthy. He's got a book. If you sign up to his thing, you get a book. And it talks in that book. It says in that book, it literally says, there's a certain fire in the words written by the owner of a brand. Like the way the owner has the enthusiasm and the fire in the words they explain just comes through somehow. And you can read a piece of copy and you can go, you know what, that comes from the heart. That comes from the owner. They are speaking to us. When you send that off to a marketing agency, you send it off to your mate to write, or you copy someone else, you don't have that fire. That it's never there, and the customers can see it even if you can't. So that's the main thing.
That authenticity, which that authenticity ends up being the pattern interrupt that you were talking about.
Yeah, exactly. And then when you find your own voice, when you find your own way, like we came back to Guzman because he's the big name. You know, he's been authentic since the start, right? Everyone says Christian Guzman, he's authentic. He's just like whatever people explain him, but he's like a bit of a goofball sometimes. He goes, you know, he's that authentic person, and you can't compete with it. Like I said at the start, there's no competing with that. And Alphalete is essentially always going to be linked to Guzman tightly, even though you might want to grow it and be more than someone. You feel Guzman through the company. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? With other brands as well, when you look at, you know, weirdly, another brand that doesn't have any sort of like phrase and stuff is Lululemon, right? They have gone hardly any athletes. You know, the owner was a bit nuts though, like he was like crazy guy. They're completely different, but as a niche brand, I think you as a person have to shine through it somehow.
I fully agree. Bring that uniqueness that only you can bring, and watch the magic grow. Scott,
like
I want to
you Fittdesign, Shadi.
Me in what sense?
Your virtues, basically, as a person you can trust, the person that says it how it is. You all work relentlessly. You're always getting better and better, and you've got that trustworthy factor to you. If you were to leave Fittdesign, right, and you had the same people there, it wouldn't be Fittdesign. And some people would say that's a negative. I disagree. If you want to turn into an Apple, right? Steve Jobs you still need Steve Jobs. When he left, you know, Apple's still grown. Maybe it's lost its soul a bit, but you don't have to turn into these massive corporations making multi-millions, hundreds of millions. So you don't have to do it. Like, why are you chasing it? Why aren't you happy with you building this brand? And the brand is a reflection of you and your life and your development over time. What's wrong with that?
That is probably one of the second biggest and best piece of advice that anyone's given on this channel. Of there is no shame in building something that is. People always assume that in order to build something that it must be the biggest and the baddest and create the most revenue, without understanding that it's all about perspective. What are my goals? And the goal should never be to make the most amount of money. The goal should be to create something that you're proud of, that you can stand behind, to create a community, to empower people, to empower yourself by obviously giving yourself a means to live, but more importantly, to create something that is a reflection of your truest self and let that develop. And I really think that takes me on to my last question, which is, Scott, after all is said and done, how would you like to be remembered?
Ooh, do you know what? Like I'm in a really good place right now. Like I'm going around Europe on my European tour. I'm in Florence right now, and I'm still working from my computer now, and I'm helping, you know, thousands, tens of thousands, up to 100,000+ all the time with TRTLE, mainly women. It's more like a school, really. It's still me. It's me as a school, weirdly, but I'm not egotistical. It's like I'm learning for people. I'm trying to help these people. I enjoy being, you know, every morning we have what we call TRTLE Radio, where we go in Clubhouse and we have hundreds of members on, and we just have a chat for an hour about getting ready for work, your kids in the background, all this stuff, right? And it made me realize, actually, like, building these businesses is all about the people you connect with, isn't it? It's literally 100%. Like, you connected with so many awesome people. You're awesome. You know, you're from Lebanon, like I'm from Wales. Like, when does that connect? You know?
In previous generations, it would have never happened.
No, exactly. So we never speak about money.
We don't need to.
We don't need to speak about money. Yeah. You know, like, you know, I say we're growing, happy days, but like we never say like, and you know, I see your office grow and all stuff's amazing, but it's never the most important part. This is a nice part of it. So I'd like to be remembered as a guy that I live up to my character, and just was trying to build companies that really helped people. I know it's a bit cliche, but in a sense, like, wanted to a guy that's maybe, let's have a think, a guy whose soul was in the companies he made, basically, you know. If I remember me as, if you can remember, if I go in 5 years time and And you go, you know what, like the essence of Scott lives on in TRTLE, like, or lives on in rugby warfare, and we can take something from that, we can be inspired by it. And I've inspired by, you know, we look back, Steve Jobs was one of the best guy, nice guy, but he still lives on in many of us. Disease lives on in many people, you know. God knows. What about you? Like, who moved you, Shadi? Like, is someone? Was there someone, or some? It could be a parent, it could be anyone. Who moved you that might not be around anymore? Is there anyone you can think of? Anything?
When I look at the entire journey, I look at two core groups of people. I look at the first group of people, which is people like yourself, people that I know on a personal level, and I'm able to see straight into their lives in terms of how they go about thinking, how they go about developing themselves, how they develop their businesses, the tenacity that they have to build something day in, day out, despite all the challenges that we all face. That inspires me to know that it's possible and to know that, you know, it's full steam ahead. And then on the other side, it's the people closest to you, you know, your parents, my father personally, seeing that representation of success, and both ethically and financially, and being able to model myself after someone who's already done it. It's been so tremendously huge, which is why I always recommend people read, because I know that, and maybe Scott, you're in the same boat. Some people may not have those parents that were insanely successful and were able to kind of guide them and give them the step by step. Yes, I may be lucky that I had privilege there more than most, but just by reading, you almost allow yourself to be fathered by so many different people from all across time and all across the world. And I think that's beautiful. And you could be in some of the most impoverished parts of the world and still have access to that.
And you got to remember, exactly, you're bang on. And what's interesting is, I mean, Florence, they say the start of the Renaissance, which they've refound classical Greek thought, Aristotle, Plato, Zeno, the Stoics, and the printing press. The mass production of books happened in this period, and this is the rebirth of our civilization in a sense, and it changed the world more than anything else. It changed the world more than the internet in a sense, because, is as powerful, because millions of people were now reading the works of Aristotle and Plato and the Stoics, and they could refer to the same page, like, oh, read page 10, what do you think of that? Right? That wasn't even possible before, because it was scrolls, and it was about 3 scrolls, right? So reading 600 years ago was still an elite for the elites and all that, and they didn't even want people to read as much, because they, like the Christian church, for example, never let people read the Bible. Didn't want them to read. When it got mass produced, it was fighting against it, because the ideas would spread to the common folk. And actually, they knew the power of books and ideas and words. Think about that. The most elite people at the time knew the power of that. But today, you can go on Amazon and you can order Epictetus's discourses written 2,000 years ago, that people would have protected by tooth and nail to someone, no one else to read, because it was so full of wisdom, that you can read in a day for £3.
What a time to be alive. Honestly, what a time.
I know, just saying, you know what I'm saying? That is absolutely mental stuff. And reading opens your mind, isn't it? Like you said, you could be anywhere across the world. And you have to put reading in like a gym session. You have to say, I'm going to read from this time to that time. You can't just go, I'll read more. It doesn't work. You have to say, I'm going to read, because it will change everything for you. Change your life.
100%. Honestly, I could not agree more.
If you want to read a book, guys, that's really puts your thinking to it makes you rethink everything. I don't know if you've heard of a guy called Krishnamurti. I'll send you the link. You can definitely recommend it. There's a book.
Well,
he didn't write any books.
I'm going to add the links to the 4 books you mentioned in the description. So do send them to me after.
This is next level book, right? This is a book that will completely change the way you think of everything. And it's called, it'll be called Choiceless Awareness. And it's not really a book he wrote. It's a topic he spoke about. And he talks about the way of being able to look at everything in the world without a choice, without judging, without accepting or declining, right? Because he talks about, we have built up our self, our ego, all this stuff. I'm Welsh as hell. I look through the lens of a Welshman, right? Can you look without that lens? Can you just look at things and that you see the truth of things? And he talks about this topic. Like you say, reading books maybe widens the lens. So I've got more experience, but can you look at something fresh and new? And if you can look at your business in that sense without all of your built up love for it, and it blinds you, or your hatred for another brand, whatever it might be, can you start looking at things without any of that stuff? It's tough.
Yeah, to have an objective look at the world and to kind of quiet your mind and to be able to just remove the fluff.
Remove the fluff and not accept anything. Just look, right? And in that observing, right, you see things differently. It's mad. Been really thinking about stuff recently as well, and you see your own mind as well. Like, why am I trying to make more money at the expense of my life or my health? Why am I trying to force this thing happening now when it's not making anything better for me? All this type of stuff. You start, you become a better person for it.
Well,
So
I mean,
that's a big one.
I definitely couldn't agree more. And Scott, I want to say massively thank you so much for, number one, taking the time to come on and speak. I know that you are in the middle of somewhat of a European tour, European vacation, European workstation, but I do appreciate you taking the time to share your knowledge of the world, share your experiences, share some more of the technical detailing regarding how you run your businesses. I know so many people are going to get a tremendous amount of value out of this, and I can't wait to release this episode. I'm so thankful for having you on, and I can't wait to see what further steps you're bound to take with both TRTLE, with Rugby Warfare, and the other projects that I know that are coming. So thank you so much for coming on, and definitely we'll be in touch.
Shadi, you're a good man. I love speaking to you and I miss you.
Of course, brother. Likewise.